And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 63. 63, Connor. Who is 63? I don't even know.
Yeah, you have to. I'm gonna have to check Hockey Reference real quick. Give me a second. Just let's take some here. Give me a second.
I got you. Yeah, I'll make sure you check it.
I'm on Firefox and it's acting up, so I'll have to go back to it. So
Firefox.
We'll edit this back in.
Yeah, we'll edit it back in. Anyways, it is the Brad Marchand episode of Poke the Bear. I'm Evan Marinofsky. Connor, what is up?
Evan, doing well. How you doing?
I am doing fantastic. It is starting to get cold this time of year. I was saying to you before we got on, waking up early this morning, like 45 degrees. And what's funny is we think it's cold now. Wait like a month. Exactly. In a month, we'll be killing for 45 degrees. So
right.
Maybe I should enjoy it.
That's the problem is like we go from like you get to September and you think when you get around this time, everything's going to drop to like that perfect, 60, 65, 70. No, you get either like the last vestiges of the summer where it's 95 or then it just rains. And then we go right from that to like, I'll deal with 45, 50. I'll enjoy a nice brisk morning. But like, as you said, we're going to have like 2-3 weeks of like 50s, 60s, and then it's going to go right into like 38 one day.
Yeah, I feel like September has some good weather, as you said, but then it's like there are days when it's just blaring hot. And also we get to that time of year where it's like freezing in the morning, but then come midday, it's kind of warm.
You walk out and like you get full coat and you're just drenched in sweat. Yeah, not great.
Yeah, not great. It's a weird time of year. People fall. I can't tell if fall's overrated or not. Everyone like loves fall, and fall's good, but is fall overrated? I think that's the question that we should be asking. If we didn't have a lot to talk about, which we do have a lot of Bruins stuff to talk about, thank God. Thank God it's not September of last year, which was, I don't even remember what we talked about last September. I can't imagine there was much. Actually, no, wasn't that around free agency? Right?
Leading into, I think it was early October, I want to say, is when free agency started. So we're probably like, all right, Krug's going to be back. Chara's obviously going to be back, so what are we worried about?
Yeah, last year didn't really happen. Nothing. What even happened last year? I have no idea. Anyways, we'll start the show with Jack Studnicka. Jack Studnicka, in his first preseason game, scores a goal on a line with Fabian Lysell and Jesper Froden. Looked really good. He's a lot bigger. But again, it goes back to my point of, how does he fit into this lineup?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely still has an uphill climb in terms of cracking, the NHL lineup with a defined role out of camp, right? Because, we've talked about, obviously, not a lot of people are mentioning this part of Jack Studnicka, but what I heard, he actually worked out quite a bit in like the Boston area, Foxborough. And he put on, what people are telling me, like 15 pounds. No one's talking about this.
He got bigger.
He got yoked this offseason. So people aren't talking about it, but that you could probably say has led to a little bit of his stronger play on the ice so far. Joking aside, we've talked about this before in terms of, falling down the rabbit hole or, maybe overvaluing a player based on what they did in the offseason or people, with the best shape of my life, that discourse you get every single preseason. And you always have to be skeptical with it, right? Because sure, of course it's going to be better for him, especially a guy like Studnicka who got knocked around last year. You want to be putting on some weight. However, it remained to be seen if it was going to actually translate to him on the ice. Again, just one preseason game, but I think you have to be encouraged by what you saw from Studnicka in that game against the Rangers. For a guy like him, he's never really been one to avoid, bringing the puck into grade A ice. The problem is in years past, he would do that and get immediately knocked outside or, be separated from the puck very easily. So this game against the Rangers, he gets, he buries a goal in transition off of a great play with Fabian Lysell. Nice ozone faceoff win leads to a goal from Vakanainen with the primary assist to Studnicka. So it's good to see him get rewarded on the score sheet. But beyond that, I think just the basic eye test of being more assertive with the puck and I think maybe being more confident with it too, which I think, goes into the fact that he's bulked up quite a bit, that he's comfortable with operating in grade A ice, absorbing contact, fighting through guys, and still, keeping that puck in that grade A ice where the chances are going to be. So I think a good step in the right direction. But again, where exactly does he fit? I still think it's unlikely that like he's going to supplant like Coyle, let's say, like in camp and be like a 2C. I think I'd be curious to see what happens on, this game on Thursday. Maybe if Coyle's still out, which I think they want to ease him into actual preseason games. Maybe this is an opportunity for, all right, let's see what we really have. Let's put Studnicka in between Hall and Smith and see what we got there. I could see that being the case, but probably the more likely scenario, if he does break camp as a center, what you're probably going to see is maybe he supplants Howla, who also in his own right looked very good in the first game. But it's a good problem to have, right? Like, let's say Studnicka slots in at 3C with DeBrusk and either or of Howla or Foligno, and one of those other guys gets bumped down to the fourth line. Good problem to have, right? So, again, is that going to be the most likely scenario? I still err more on the side of they stick with some of the veteran guys they signed in the offseason, but we can be talking about this a week from now. And if Studnicka had 3 points with Hall and Smith on Thursday and he keeps on racking up points, who knows, right? I mean, so far, in terms of passing that first test, I think he did. It's all about how he kind of builds off of it with this window that he has where, there's going to be reps available during the preseason. He's got to make the most of them.
Yeah, I also think, and I mentioned this, I think, on last Poke the Bear, it's also good that he's doing well because then maybe you can trade him. That's a piece of someone who has value. And the other thing is, obviously he did great Tuesday night against the Rangers. I think another thing is it's going to get more important as things go along because the lineups are going to be better. They're going to be more closer in the preseason to a regular season lineup, which is what you want to see him dominate against. The Rangers obviously didn't have their normal top six out there. That was not, it was kind of like a little bit of an AHL lineup. But I do think that ultimately, kind of going that long with the preseason is good. Another thing I just thought of, and this was what was kind of tripping me up there for a second. How you mentioned players like saying they're in the best shape of their life. Imagine like the first reporters ever, like the first sports reporters, like the first year that, I don't know, sports reporters like existed. And they're like a team's training camp. And they're like, damn, Jim, can you believe it? Every single player says they're in the best shape of their life. This team's going to be a wagon this year. They're going to win every game.
Lessons learned in the early stages of sports journalism before hot takes permeated the entire market. That's when you could get away with being like, everyone's looking in really good shape. We're going to the cup.
Reporters are talking to each other at like games. They're like, it's funny. They were saying they were in the best shape of their life. And the reporter's like, well, the team I cover said they're in the best shape of their life too. This is crazy. It's like the whole playoff beards thing.
The Toronto media is like, nah, this guy's fat. Like this guy is. Well, I measured his BMI myself. Now he's tacked on some pounds.
They're gonna have a ball with Nick Ritchie up there. But it's like the playoff beard thing. If every team's doing playoff beards, who's it really benefiting? Anyways, another guy who's fighting for a lineup spot is John Moore. Remember him? Remember John Moore? John Moore is back in the fold. And 2 games so far, he's looked okay. He's looked good, serviceable. What have you thought?
Yeah, no, I thought he's been actually pretty solid the last couple of games. Again, we haven't had, like the McAvoys, the Carlos, a few of those guys in the lineup. So Moore has gotten quite a few, top 4 minutes. I think he's had over 20 minutes of ice time per game. And so far, so good. I mean, again, as we've said, you've got to, measure expectations when it comes to how guys fare in the preseason. But, I mean, one, it's just a good thing in general for his career that he's back on the ice and healthy, as much as I think, there's concern on whether, how his play style fits in and whether he has the ability to be a full-time regular on this Bruins team. I think, one thing you have to be aware of is the fact that he's also dealt with quite a few injuries over the last couple of years. I mean, I think people forgot that, it's sometimes easy to be like, oh, what happened to John Moore? You didn't really notice it last year because he only played, I think, 5 games, but he missed, 5-6 months on the shelf with, I think, a hip surgery. So good for him just to be healthy. And, if John Moore plays to his level or shows that he's a serviceable guy, again, good problem to have for the Bruins. Is he going to leapfrog someone? I don't think so, especially on the left side. I think the left side is set, right, with Forward and Grzelcyk and Riley. But if Moore is your 7th defenseman and can slot in when needed and proves that he can be a reliable guy in that role, or who knows, I think he played a little bit on the right side on Tuesday. And you can also, if he fits into the right side and can play those minutes, who knows? Maybe he puts himself in the picture where he's either pushing Clifton or, again, as a 7th D, he can slot into that spot. So I think expectations have to be realistic with Moore. I don't think all of a sudden, now that he's healthy, he's going to be a 40-point guy, or he's going to be maybe the guy that they thought they had when they signed him to that 5-year deal way back when. But still, I think it's nothing but good news from the Bruins and Moore's perspective that at the very least he's healthy. He's looking solid so far. Moving his feet, which I think Moore, when he's at his best, is, he's a great skater. So when he's moving his feet and being assertive, that's when his value kind of really shows on the ice. So if we get to the part of the season where the year opens up and he's the 7th D or he's pushing Clifton, again, good problem to have, and helps out a Bruins decor that, while intriguing, also I think needs some suitable contingency plans in place in case for injury or what have you.
Yeah, if for injury, and again, if he's your 7th defenseman, your 7th defenseman last year was Steven Kampfer, and I think that's an upgrade. I think John Moore is probably an upgrade over Steven Kampfer. So in that regard, fine, and again, you're gonna have injuries. Moore is going to get time. He could push Clifton. I'm interested to see how a guy like John Moore kind of fits in with this team. And again, I think it's different than Studnicka, obviously, because Studnicka, I don't really know the roster spot he has. John Moore is just going to be 7th defenseman. Like, as you said, I don't think he's going to win a job. He's not going to be your 5th or 6th. He's your 7th defenseman. Moving on in the lineup, Fabian Lysell looks good out there. I think he can come into Boston this year and put up 80 points, maybe trade Pastrnak. Now's the time. But anyways, Fabian Lysell looked good alongside Jack Studnicka and Jesper Froden on Tuesday. On Sunday, he played with, it was still Froden, right? But it was
Lauko.
And Lauko. Where is his game at? I mean, I think the eye test says, he's good. He's been good on the North American sheet, but he's going to need some time up in Vancouver with the WHL.
Yeah, I still think that's the plan. I think probably the perception before this preseason was like, we'll give him some reps. We'll see how he does. He's 170 pounds soaking wet. He's going to get knocked off the puck a lot. So going to the preseason, it's like, we'll get him a game, maybe 2, see how he does, just getting his feet wet, and then get him ready for the WHL. I don't know if maybe that conversation has changed a little bit, where I still think he goes to Vancouver, but I think maybe Bruins top brass probably like, this guy can play. I mean, that's what Bruce Cassidy's kind of comments have been the last couple of days, is for as much as I think when you're evaluating a player like that, you have to keep expectations in check and be aware of what his strengths are. I think it's impressive for a guy like Lysell, who's 18, that already, at this stage of his career where he's already going to get better, but he knows at 18 years old where his strengths are and is using that to his advantage to try to take advantage of, bigger, stronger, older, competition in the NHL. So whether that's, using his feet to, help with transition plays. He had a couple of really good plays in the prospect challenge where he was using his feet to, shield the puck from guys pressuring up high, making space for himself, driving to the net. You saw the play in transition with him and Studnicka, which led to a goal from Studnicka. So the talent's there. I think there's no question about that. I think he's a very talented player that's going to have a very promising career in front of him. But I think from the Bruins perspective, I think the most impressive takeaway is the fact that he's already, he's not like this guy who we know he's fast, we know he's skilled, and it's just using, he's just, skating out there with no purpose, or, he's using the kind of, tool set that he has already to take advantage of, the matchups that still might be a little bit, a tier above what he's used to, which I think is impressive for a guy that age, that he's still showing that. And other, his defensive game, obviously he's going to have to work on the finer details up in the North American game, but he had a really good back check, I think, on Tuesday against the Rangers. So as a whole, I think you should be very impressed with just what he's shown so far. And is he still going to the WHL? I think so, but it's not as, slam dunk, I think, maybe as it was over these last 2 games. And who knows, maybe if Lysell gets another game and we go from there and see whether they think that he can really hold his own in the AHL, because right now it might be a little bit of a mismatch, but he's a very talented player, and 2, he looks like he's a very smart player, that he knows how to, hold his own against competition that's a little bit more advanced for him at this stage of his career.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. He's not skating around aimlessly. We know he's fast, we know his skill, but he's not just out there kind of just dilly-dallying, so to speak. He's doing real things. He's putting himself in good positions. He's helping his line mates. I mean, he had a nice pass on the goal that Studnicka scored Tuesday night. So it's the little things like that. Anyways, the fourth line, or what we think will be the fourth line, Frederic, Nosek, and Lazar, had their first preseason game Tuesday night. Had some penalties. Wasn't the greatest showing for them in the beginning. Where do you think they stand at this point?
Yeah,
and could they potentially get broken up as time goes along?
Yeah, I think that's definitely on the table. I think they're definitely a work in progress. And when you look at a guy like Wagner, who's maybe on the outside looking in right now, a guy like Lauko, maybe. You obviously have Bleed, Hughes, a few of these other guys.
Carson Coleman.
Yeah, we can go through Oscar Steen. You got a whole bunch of guys that are vying for that spot, which again is a good problem to have for the Bruins, where you're not automatically penciling in Frederic, Nosek, and Lazar as the go-to guys if they're not playing up to their abilities. And you saw, some promise in that game against the Rangers. I think especially Nosek was very, very good. I don't think I have much of a qualm with the way he played. Shot first guy. He had 7 shots on goal. Was, active on the forecheck, was, behind the net, was doing the things that I think you need in terms of getting a little bit more offensive pop from that unit, winning puck battles and then planting himself in front. I don't think that fourth line is going to score a lot of highlight reel goals, but if it's crashing the net, if it's, putting yourself in that grade A ice, good things tend to happen, right? And I think Nosek's a shot first guy that's going to help that unit. Now, who kind of fits in on the wing? I think that's probably the bigger question mark, because I think you saw a lot of lack of cohesion with that whole unit as a whole. Lazar had a bad turnover that eventually led to that Panarin breakaway goal against Kyle Kaiser. Frederic, really wasn't that active in terms of a guy that I think you'd like to see. One, we've talked about with Frederic. Everyone loves him. Everyone loves that he drops the gloves and is ornery. But he didn't look like a guy who was, fighting to add, a lot of energy or fighting for a spot in the lineup. Like he had a little chat with Ryan Reeves, but wasn't throwing his weight around really. Cassidy said after the game that he wasn't moving his feet nearly enough, and you need more of that. So hopefully that's a wake-up call for Frederic if he gets another game in terms of being more active, because it's only the fact that, we've gone through the requirements for Frederic, right, where he needs to be more, productive in the offensive zone. Again, not asking for 20 goals, but if he ends the year with 82 games and has 10 goals and 16 points, you'll take it, right?
That's it. That's all you need.
So you need that. But also it's not just the, being a fly in the ointment. You also need to throw your weight around and be active on the forecheck, moving your feet. Didn't see enough of that yesterday. So I think right now you have to be encouraged by what you have with a guy like Nosek in the middle. And then you have to, over the next couple of games, just find where those pieces fit. Maybe it's Frederic and Lazar, and it was just, shaking the rust off in their first preseason game together. But again, fourth line, very complicated in terms of the number of guys you have out there, but a good problem to have if you've got Nosek kind of penciled in there and you have multiple other guys hungry and trying to get a spot around him.
See, and this is the thing, like with the Frederic aspect of things, Cassidy's very trigger happy when it comes to these lines, especially with younger guys. With all the options he has, we named him before: Oscar Steen, Carson Coleman, Jacob Lauko, Chris Wagner. The list can go on and on with guys who you have that can fit in there. If you are the three, if you're Nosek, Frederic, and Lazar, you have to know that you could lose your job at any second. And for Frederic to kind of come out last night, and again, it's the first game, the first preseason game. I'm not going to get so on him for it, but to not have that energy and that fire and to be doing those little things right is concerning, because it's like, no, that your job is not steady. You're not a top 6 fixture. You are fighting for a spot or fighting to keep your spot on that fourth line. So I do think that it is a little concerning, but again, it's first game, not overreacting for good things, not overreacting for bad things. As I tweeted before the first game, I said, hey, who wants to overreact? It's always fun to overreact to preseason games. So I guess that is the fun things. Encouraging starts, though, for Jake DeBrusk and Eric Haula. Both of those guys looked really good in the game against Washington on Sunday night. Jake DeBrusk had a goal, the shootout winner as well. He was kind of all over the place. And Haula was good as well. those two being on a line together. I think one thing I want to see is Foligno next to those
Mhm.
two guys. I think I want to see how he complements them because again, Hala has some speed. Jake DeBrusk has that finishing ability. How does Nick Foligno kind of work with those two guys? How do you expect Nick Foligno to sort of work with those guys?
Yeah, I think for him, it's kind of just playing a simple game. I think we've heard a lot already, and it's one of those things where not much of a surprise. Players in the room love Nick Foligno, what he brings. Seems like
Funny
a great
faces.
guy. Yeah, exactly. He's great. He's a great quote, which I think we all appreciate already. High character guy. But again, you also need him to contribute on the ice to help that team, especially if, regardless of kind of what Studnicka fits into the mix of, let's say the third line to start the year is DeBrusk, Howla, and Foligno, you've got a lot of potential with that line, and you need that line to hopefully produce. Now, again, we're not saying DeBrusk 30 goals, and Howla is going to be Eric Howla from that first year in Vegas where he almost had 30 goals, right? But
Yeah, that was
you've
nuts.
got you've got a mix there of one, guys who are talented, guys who are due for bounce back years in some capacity, and I think Foligno can be a very good complement on that line. You know, it's for him. I think it's more or less just playing the simple game. I think for him, it's being effective on the forecheck, throwing his weight around. I think you've got the pieces in place for a very intriguing line that can be very effective in the offensive zone, especially. I think DeBrusk is probably the finisher on that line, but Howla has a good shot, very good face-off guy, which could maybe help his cause a little bit in terms of really carving out that 3C spot if Studnicka pushes for it. But I think, yeah, for Foligno, it's all about some of the simple things, that I think maybe not even lead to a secondary helper or anything like that, but can, set the groundwork and begin the sequence that leads to a promising chance, whether that's, getting, mucking things up down in the crease or winning a puck battle along the wall or stuff like that. I think if he complements that line effectively, and it's not like, square pegs and round holes in terms of how that line fits, you have the potential for a very effective line. And I think you have to be encouraged by what DeBrusk and Howla showed in that first game, especially DeBrusk, right? Where I think for him, it's all about confidence and, being confident in his own ability. And so for him to score that goal, in regulation, get that shootout winner. And I think kind of similar to Studnicka, where the production getting rewarded is good to see. But I think the eye test was maybe the more encouraging thing, because for DeBrusk, it was a lot of what you saw from him during the years where we thought this guy was going to be a lock to be a 30-goal scorer down the road, where, again, it's not changing the formula or doing anything crazy. It's for a guy like him who has a nose for the net. It's just, getting down low, putting yourself in spots to knock in rebounds, tip pucks. Clifton drives to the net on that goal, leads to a good chance, loose puck. He knocks it home. Like, that's what you need from DeBrusk in that role, especially in that third line where, are they going to be the flashiest? Probably not. But if Foligno's mucking things up, if he's creating chances, if there's rebounds to be had, you need a guy like DeBrusk to, one, be down there, and two, to be finishing those chances.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, like, I'm excited to see sort of the impact, the veteran impact Foligno has on Jake DeBrusk with that line, because I think it can be helpful. And the same with a guy like Howla on DeBrusk as well. You kind of hit on all the points with DeBrusk. Now let's get to the goaltending. We'll end the show on the goaltending. Olmark lets in 2, correct?
Yes. Yep.
On Tuesday night, and then Swayman let in 18 saves on 19 shots. So they obviously, it's like back in youth days, they split the games. It's like when they have one goalie goes in for the first half, and then the middle of the second period, the other goalie comes in. Obviously, this was a little bit different. But do you have any big concerns? Any Swayman had some nice saves on Sunday. Kyle Kaiser had a really nice stop on Tuesday night. Is there anything that's sticking out to you that was concerning, that was good?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything too wild. I think it's probably too early to have hot takes on these goalies. I think
this
both
guy
of them,
sucks.
it's to be expected for them to be shaking some of the rust off. I think both guys had some issues early on with rebounds. I think Swayman really kind of tidied it up after he let up that first goal. I think he let up a goal on maybe his second shot against the game, and then he stopped, I think, 17 straight after that. So he locked in.
When that one went in, I was like, oh, here we go. Here comes that second year,
Yeah,
tremendous.
Exactly. But I think Swayman especially looked very, very good. He's so good, especially moving laterally, where he seals off the post and stops those chances. He denied, I think, Lars Eller for a chance. And was Olmark shot? Probably not. I mean, he still had a few more rebounds that you'd like for him to control. But again, I'm not putting too much stock into half of a game, especially for him. It was a bit of a weird game anyway, where, lets up a goal off of a sick feed from Panarin, loose puck in front that Vakanainen can't tie up, leads to a goal. And then kind of had that lull in the first period, right? I don't think he faced a shot on goal for I think he faced one shot on goal for about 13 minutes. So kind of a weird game in general, right? I'd like to see maybe how he fares when you've got a full game under his belt and probably against tougher competition, more NHL regulars in the lineup, which I imagine you're going to see. Bruce Cassidy said that he wants to see both Ullmark and Swayman get into full games before the preseason ends. So too early to give, hot and cold takes or guys, stock how they fit. I still think Ullmark probably has the edge in terms of who's the 1A going into the regular season, but good problem to have. Once again, this team, it's going to be, I think, maybe the mantra of the season is good problems to have in terms of how these pieces kind of fall into place.
Yeah, and Ullmark has the dark pads, so that's something different. And he also makes a lot more money, so that's definitely going to be a big reason why he opens the season as the 1A. Yeah, I don't really have any hot takes on the goalies. Again, you can't overreact with those things, especially considering they're not playing full games. It's their first games. Obviously, rebound control is not going to be as good as you want it. But again, if this is an issue in late October, then we're going to have a different conversation. Right. But anyways, that is Poke the Bear episode 63. Conor, before we go, what can the people look forward to over at BSJ?
Yeah, we're going to continue to break down, give takeaways and all that good stuff from the rest of these preseason games. Still got 4 on the docket, including 2 later this week. So we'll be back over at the Garden for the first time since a few of those Islanders games. So it'll be good to be back over on Causeway Street. So we'll have all reaction from those games. We'll be looking at maybe doing a stock watch in terms of how guys are moving up or down the depth chart and how they've fared so far in the preseason. So we'll have all that over at BSJ. So subscribe to BostonSportsJournal.com. Want to follow me on Twitter? You can do that at ConorRyan_93.
Remember those Islander games? Our reaction after every game was just like, how are they losing?
And then it would be like people on YouTube commenting, be like, "You guys are frauds, man. You guys Islanders they respect." I'm like, how the fuck did you find Bruins Rinkside?
Get out of here. Seriously. Like what? It was same with the Blues. I remember when that was all happening and Bruins Rinkside wasn't a thing then. It was just the CLNS Media YouTube page. And they would always get on us. They get on me for looking like I was 12, which I mean, I can't sit here and debate. I mean, you're right. Like, oh, what's this little kid doing on the ice? But yeah, no, I just remember the Islanders things after every game being like, how did they lose that game? Because they would outshoot them like 50-15 and then lose. But anyways, hoping for better things upcoming. So I mean, it's preseason, so who cares? Anyways, that is Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. You Poke the Bear listeners, have a great rest of your week.